Hey U City, I am Maria Furlough. I'm the ministry coordinator here at U City, and I am so excited to be joining you this week for week 2 of our series on hope dealers. And it's a really important topic right now, right? Because so much of us have the desire to have hope. Many of us have not been experiencing it, and some of us have lost ours. And so today, I am really grateful to talk about hope killers and the things that we experience in our lives, that come into our lives, that threaten to kill our hope. Now, I would like to start with just a little bit of introduction into who I am around here, because I think that there's a little bit of a confusion, especially on Sunday mornings, as to which children are mine. Okay, so I have 5 children. Running around U City on Sunday mornings, there's approximately 20 children, which everyone just has allocated to mine. Now, I would love that because they're all wonderful children, but I have 5. So in order to kind of clear up the conspiracies, I'm going to give you visual proof over which ones are Furloughs. So first is my husband, Dave. He really gets his joy being behind the scenes, mainly helping out in U City Kids, which is awesome, but he's also an extreme introvert. So this is your opportunity, guys. If you ever run into this man, make sure that you engage him in a conversation, okay? Next is my daughter, Faith. She is my oldest. She's 14. She is my only girl, and she keeps all the pieces in line in our home, okay? She brings so much joy and steadfastness to our home. We have David. David's way taller than me now, and I have to purchase hugs from him, which I'm adjusting to this stage of life. But he would love to play you in a shootout in basketball. So if you see him, that's him. Then we have Aaron, who is my 3rd child. He is 10. He is in 4th grade. His sarcastic humor is top tier. So if you ever are able to get that out of him, that would be awesome. My 4th child is my precious Gideon. Gideon I had to hold in my life for about an hour and a half. And then he went to be with Jesus, and he is going to be a little bit a part of the story that I share with you today. He is very much a part of our family. He is part of the makeup of the Furloughs. So we love him and we miss him very much. March is actually his birthday, March 31st. So we celebrate him every year. And then there is my youngest, my 6-year-old named Sammy. Now, some of you might have known people in your life who have lost a baby. Your baby after an infant loss is your rainbow baby. And part of that name is just because of the immense joy that they bring into your life after a season of grief and loss. And Sammy is by far the biggest bundle of joy that you will ever experience. And I wanted to start today by sharing a really special story that I had with Sammy, because God really did something in me that day with him, and I'm really hoping and praying that it will also be something that speaks to you. So we went to the beach to ring in the new year this year, 2021 into 2022. And was anybody else kind of I'm not really sure how I feel about it being a new year? Last year, going into 2021, I was like, this is it. We're going to nail this year. It's going to be better. And then, it wasn't. So this year, I'm I don't even want to celebrate New Year's. I'm just going to pretend like it's not happening. So we went to the beach. And Sammy wanted to go on a walk to hunt for shells. Now, it wasn't just any walk though. Sammy wanted the perfect shaped shell. Okay? Say that 10 times fast. The perfect shaped shell. And so this is what we were on the hunt for. And we're walking along the beach, and I'm Sammy, these are the kinds of things that God wants to hear about. I'm sure that God would love to be included in our walk on the beach. Why don't you ask him to help you find a perfect shaped shell? And then my internal mother clock is dear Lord, please, when this child asks you for a perfect shaped shell, please give it to him. So Sammy puts his 2 little hands together, and he goes like this. He goes, "Dear God, please put a perfect shaped shell in my hand right now." And I was that is a wonderful childlike faith prayer. And so my mama heart was beating, because I'm not ready for my 6-year-old to have a hope killer experience yet. I'm just not. It's just, it's just hope dealing, not hope killing. And so finally we pick up a shell, and I was because every shell I'm asking him, is this it? And so it was something like this. And I was like, Sammy, is this the perfect shaped shell? Does this count? Like, can this count for an answered prayer? And he was like, yes, God gave me the perfect shaped shell. And I was like, oh, deep breath. Thank the Lord, my child's prayer was answered. And so, but meanwhile, I'm having my own little existential experience happening on this walk with Sammy, because I'm not sure about you, but I feel like, especially over this past 2 years, like I've had a lot of these, dear God, please, please, whatever, just give me this one thing. I need this one thing to give me hope, to help me keep hope, because things just seem hard. And like when I've dreamt out the map of my life, or when I think of what to ask God for, I have this exact picture of what I think an answered prayer is going to look like, and for what him hearing me would look like. We're walking along and I'm just thanking God. I'm thanking God that he heard the prayer of my child, and I'm thanking God for the ocean. And I am praying because this past 2 years have been really, really hard years for me. And so I'm praying into 2022, and I'm like, I need this perfect shaped shell. This is what I need in order to make this year the year that hope comes back. And so we're almost done with our walk. We're almost back to the house. And there's in the sand, like kind of dug deep, there's just these like, they look like rocks. Like they're just kind of like these rocks poking through the sand. Like the kind that you're like, don't step on those because they're gonna hurt your feet. But this still small God voice that I pray that we're going to continue to talk about today, because that still small God voice is so important when we're talking about things threatening to kill our hope, said, go dig those up. I want to show you something. And so I was like, well, okay, let's go do this. And so I go over to this little patch of sand where these black rocks are poking up, and I start digging. And what I dug up was God's version of what a real perfect shaped shell looked like. Now, I don't know about you, but if you have ever found one of these, but it is a whole perfect, no pieces out of it, conch shell. And it's black and white, nothing like I had ever seen before. And conch shells are especially important to me because at the beach is really where I experience God most. I wonder if you have a place like that too. And so what happened in me at that moment that God kind of was teaching me through this experience with my son is that this is what you pray for, Maria. Do you think you have this exact idea of what my hope is going to look like? You think you have this exact idea of what blessings are going to look like? And it's what I pray for. But my answers to your prayers are more complexly beautiful than you can ever even imagine. You see black rocks sticking out of the sand that are threatening to hurt you. But underneath the surface is the truest blessing that your brain could have ever imagined. And so, oddly enough, when Pastor Terrell asked me to do the sermon on hope killers, I got excited. Because while the ideas of grief and loss and pain and suffering and disappointment and betrayal and failure are these like topics that we just want to we don't want to talk about them because they are, in our imagination, life ruiners. They can be, right? They can bring so much despair and hopelessness that when we're praying for this perfect shaped shell, in our mind, we are praying to stay away from any of those kinds of things. God, just please answer my prayer and keep me away from these hard things. But what God has taught me through my life, and what I am praying that he will teach you through your life, is though those are hard experiences to live life through, there are beautiful, perfect, hope-filling blessings that come with them. It doesn't take away the pain of experiencing them, though. And so today, what I would love to do is talk together honestly about hope killers, right? Because I think some of us walk through this life and we're kind of afraid to share these things. Because if I share them, maybe I won't look as put together. If I share about these hope killers in my life, maybe somebody will look at me different. Or worst of all, is what if I share this thing and the way that they respond makes it worse? And so I close up tight and I keep all my little hope killer experiences in pockets where nobody can see them. but then we can't love each other through them. And we can't allow God to speak through other people. And so my prayer today, as we dig through God's word, is that we soften up a little bit to this sharing our hope killer experiences with one another, and then also how to engage God in these times when the true pain is hitting us in life, like so many of us have been experiencing over the past 2 years, right? Like I found such comfort in hearing people's stories and realizing that it's not just me. It's been rough for a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and it really is continuing to be like that. So we at U City, we like to go to what the Bible says about things like this. And the reason why we do this is because we trust that God is who he says that he is. And so what he tells us about his word is that it's a source of truth. And I don't know about you, but it's a really, really comforting thing to have something in our life that can be rock solid truth. So, and the Bible is full of stories of people that are just like me and you, that have all of the struggles, all of the hurts, all of the same kinds of life experiences that we have. All of these stories are in there. And so today, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite Bible characters, and his name is David. Now, what's interesting and cool about David is that the way God talks about David is he says that David is like a man after my own heart. David says that he is a man that has his heart that is like God's. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a kind of person that I would like to be. And when I calculate in my head what I think that would look like is actually a lot different than what David's life looked like. And so because we're talking about hope killers today, we're going to do the funsiest thing and go through all of the tragedies in David's life. So David experienced all the things. He experienced getting kicked out of his town and home and going into exile. He was being chased down to be murdered. He was very betrayed by someone that he trusted. He committed adultery, and then to cover up the adultery, he committed murder. And then as a result of those things, he lost the baby. He experienced just like trials at home as a father. Like he had really unruly sons. And so one son killed the other son. And then his other son tried to murder him and tried to throw him off the throne. And then finally, his whole his nation, they were experiencing immense sickness and plague. So I don't know which one of those things that might have necessarily happened in your life. I'm sure none of them exactly the way that David had. And I don't think that, I think that David's story would make a very lovely Netflix series personally, but maybe not the exact things, but the kinds of things that resulted in this, right? Topping my list is the experience of personal failure. That's its own kind of suffering and struggle that we don't talk about much. We have the tendency, I think, especially when the people of God and the church are at its lowest, we like to point out those things in people and say, oh my gosh, look at them. What did they do? But it's a really interesting part of David's story to acknowledge that even all through his mistakes and his struggles, he was still considered a man after God's own heart, because it's what you do with them. And we are so mistaken as a church to ever cast judgment upon somebody, because God is the only one that knows their heart. And let me tell you, it is a special brand of hope killer in this life when you begin to experience your own failings and the places inside of you that you really come to the end of yourself because you feel like you struggle with your weaknesses every single day. That was one of the things that happened with me in COVID and quarantine. When the world around me stilled and I was left with just Maria inside, I was like, oh no. So there is suffering and weakness that David experienced through his own failures. He experienced death and loss and betrayal, and as a result, anxiety and depression and hopelessness. And so what do we do? What did David do? How is it that after all of these things that he experienced in his life, his legacy was being a man after God's own heart? That is crazy to me, because if I had even one of those things in my life, I feel like my life would be ruined. My reputation would be ruined, and no one would ever look at me the same. But God is not us. And what he sees, when he sees David's story in all of the loss and the pain and the suffering, he saw what David did to endure through them. He saw what David did with his heart while he was going through it. It's so important for us to remember, because I can get so stuck on what is threatening to kill my hope, whether it's depression or suicidal thoughts or loss of a loved one or grief that won't go away, or wanting to succeed so bad at this one thing and never being able to. I can get so stuck on solving that thing and praying for this perfect shaped shell that I forget about the posture of my heart. And so we have an entire book of the Bible called Psalms, where it's David's conversations with God. And he vents and he yells and he hides nothing from God. And he takes through all these hard things in his life, he takes them and he brings them to God. He runs towards God. I was meeting with my friend Sydney last week, and we were having a conversation about like when hard things come in life. And I love what she said. It cracked me up. She's like, I just move on past. She's like, I ain't stopping at that. I'm like, oh man, can you teach me how to do that? I get stuck. She's like, yep, nope, something hard. And I'm like, nope, move on past. And we have that choice sometimes, right? When it's like the smaller painful things, we're like, we're just gonna skip over that. But when we face those walls, those brick walls that won't let us move past, what do we do? Because God came so that we can have hope. So what do we actually do with this painful, crazy season, right? Okay, so we are going to use a prayer that David prayed in Psalm 77, and we're gonna like track it and use it as an example of what we can do when we are faced with something that is threatening to kill our hope, or we are faced with such like just inner despair that we don't know what to do. David gives us a few cheat codes that we can do. So I'm going to read what David is saying, and then I'm just going to give one possible suggestion as to what we can do with that thing. Okay, so Psalm 77, verse 1 through 3, David says this: I cry aloud to God, and he will hear me. I sought the Lord in my day of trouble. My hands were continually lifted up all night long. I refuse to be comforted. I think of God and I groan. I meditate and my spirit becomes weak. David is like giving God a recap, right? And he's being honest. He's like, I'm trying to talk to you. It just leads in groaning. I try to lay with you at night. It just makes me weaker. And I'm faced with I'm crying out to you, God. I'm coming to you in my days of trouble. And it's like, he's like renaming the circumstances, right? Like I can go through my day and my week so quickly, or seasons of pain so narrowly, that I'm even forgetting to have conversations with God. And so a really great place to start is listing out the things. What's the matter? What's going on? Name the thing. And don't name it in like the sugar-coated kind of way. Like, oh, well, it's okay because... No, like name the actual thing that is eating you alive right now, even in your head. Name one thing. If you're with somebody and you don't want to say it out loud, don't. But if you're by yourself, say the thing out loud. What is it? What is it with you in your life that has got you so uncomforted, so much in pain, so much like groaning to God? Name the thing. It seems like a silly idea. It seems redundant, but there is power in bringing name to the thing that is sitting in darkness inside of you. God calls it bringing it out of the darkness and into the light. And guys, trust me, I understand. There's some things that I ain't bringing out in the light around another human being. Not yet. Maybe someday. Not today. Some things. But we're talking about like the safe place with God. He sees it and he knows it all anyways. So there is power in bringing it out from that deep recess inside of you and bringing it into the light. Just name it. Say the thing. David keeps going. You have kept me from closing my eyes. I am troubled and I cannot speak. I consider days of old, years long past. At night I remember my music. I meditate and my spirit ponders. David is kind of like renaming what he has seen God begin to do, right? He's like, okay, I know that you've kept me from closing my eyes. You know that I'm troubled and cannot speak. And so what do I do next? And so this, to me, this is the fun part, okay? Because God is so awesome and so big and so gracious that this is what he wants us to do with him, okay? Verse 7. Will the Lord reject forever and never again show favor? Has his faithful love ceased forever? Is his promise at an end for all generations? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has he in his anger withheld his compassion? Like, what, God? Like, are you gone? Where did you go? This does not seem good at all. Why would you let this happen? Who is this person? What is that thing? What are you thinking? Like, I don't know about you, but I have had lots of those conversations over the past couple of years. I definitely had those conversations when I was pregnant with Gideon, is when at my 18-week ultrasound is when I found out that he had what's called a fatal condition. So I was going to be able to carry him. He was going to thrive in pregnancy, but as soon as he came, he wasn't going to be able to survive. That's why he only lived for an hour and a half. And I remember I was yelling to God. I'm like, I didn't even know this was a thing. Like, I knew that you could lose babies. I'd heard about stillbirths, but like, what is this thing that you are going to have me do where I have to live through pregnancy with a child that I know was not going to live? Like, where did that even come from? These honest questions. What is the thing for you right now? That maybe there are some questions that you have been like, you know, you've been soft to God and you've been kind to him, which we should always be. But he wants all of the things. But back to the heart thing about the man after David's own heart, he wants us to take our heart and give it to him. Only we can do it. He's not going to take it from us. He is kind and he is compassionate and he is powerful and he is strong, but it's up to us whether or not we want to take our heart posture and give it to him, which includes our hard questions. So what are your hard questions? We were 2 or 3 months into quarantine and I was like, no, what are you thinking? And it was real funsies for the first like 2-3 weeks when I thought we were on vacation and like biking and things. But a month or two in, when all the things started closing down and we were locked with 7 of us in my house, I was like, no, Lord, you knew that this was coming and I cannot imagine why you would have let it. It's called wrestling with him. And it strengthens spiritual muscles in us that we didn't even know we had. So ask all the questions. Get them out there. And then David says next, so I say, I am grieved that the right hand of the Most High has changed. So what will I do? I will remember the Lord's works. So David comes up with a plan. He asks all the questions. And I want to tell you, in the question asking process, sometimes God gives us answers. Sometimes in that moment, there was a day when I was pregnant with Gideon, and I felt like I couldn't even get up off my floor. I was like, I'm not making it through this day, God. And I said, this is my question to him. And it was a hard question, guys. I'm sharing this with you. I said, why did you make me like a walking symbol of death? Because pregnancy to me has always been a walking symbol of life. So this feels like I am a walking symbol of death. And it's awful. I didn't even want to go out in public because when people would congratulate me for being pregnant, I'm like, I have no idea. And that was an example of a time where that still small voice that I was telling you about on the beach said to me, Maria, I know that you think that Gideon's life is so temporary, but Gideon's life is eternal. And when you will be with him someday, you will see that he is a symbol of life. Because to you, an hour and a half is a short life, and 99 years is a long life, but in eternity, when we have that hope of forever, it's all the same. And so I wrote that down because that was a time when I asked a question and I got an answer, and it helped me get up and get hope that got me through my day. But there's sometimes, like my quarantine questions, I ain't still got answers for those. And I'm going to keep asking them probably, but it's part of the process of God asking me to wait for answers that's in that situation. But we ask them anyways, and we ask away because it engages our heart. When we're in the middle of a hope-killing season, it engages our heart with his. And so David's yelling out all his questions. And so he's like, okay, I got a plan. David comes up with a plan that hopefully we can do too. It says, so I will remember the Lord's works. Yes, I will remember your ancient wonders. I will reflect on all you have done and meditate on your actions. God, your way is holy. What God is great like God? You are the God who works wonders. You revealed your strength among the peoples. And so what David was doing is he was saying, okay, today is a bad day and I can't find you in this, God. But because I can't find you today, I'm going to remember where I have found you before. And I'm going to think on those things and I'm going to name them. And I don't know if you have had any experiences in your life that you can remember back to that you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that God did something. And if you haven't had a moment like that, I am praying that you will have a moment like that and that you will have it soon, because those moments are galvanized in our spirits and we can go back to them when we are not having a day like that, like today. And so David was going back and he's naming all the attributes of God. God, you are holy, you are strong, you have powerful, you've moved in my nation and in my life in the past, and I'm going to remember that today. One of those moments for me, after lots of those wrestling months that I was pregnant with Gideon, on the day that he came, it was hour and a half. I don't know why doctors have to do this, but he put the little stethoscope up to Gideon and he called his death. And I remember sitting there at that moment with peace like a blanket over me that I had never experienced before. And I said out loud in that moment, I said, God, if you can give me peace in this moment and you can get me through this moment, I know that you can get me through anything. And that has been tested since then. And in the darkness and the despair of depression and suicidal thoughts that have come in my life over the past couple of years, I had questioned that again. But I would often, on the day when I doubted and I'm like, God, you can't get me through this one. He would say, but remember that day, remember what you said? You said that if I can get you through that, I can get you through anything, and I have not changed. And so what's a story that you have like that you can, I call it, I have an imaginary necklace around my neck that's of memories, and I put things in the jar. It's weird. I don't know. So I grab the memories like that and I keep them with me to tap into when I need God's peace and his hope and remembering what he did. And so I hope, even in this moment, can you think of one? Like, can you go through the back in your life? I know that Terrell has shared his story before of how God spoke like out loud to him. Like, he's like, I know that God spoke out to him, and he remembers all the details in that moment, and that can tap into his strength now. Do you have any moments like that? So at U City, we do these things called shared challenges. And so I have a shared challenge for you today. I think that there are two different kinds of seasons in life. I think that there are seasons that threaten hope. And those seasons are seasons that God is allowing you to suffer and is allowing you to go through a hard thing. And then there's seasons when God is calling you to be a comforter. And so I would ask as a U City shared challenge that you would identify in yourself, am I in a season of suffering, or I am in a season of comforting? Am I in a season where I am experiencing hope killers, or I am in a season where I can be a hope dealer? And I would love for you to share with someone this week and share with them which season that you're in. And you can just say, hey, I'm tracking with this awesome church called U City, and they do these things called shared challenges every week. Vulnerability saves is also really important to them. They have seen and talked about how vulnerability changes lives. And so I just would love to share with you about the season that I'm in, and wondered if you would share with me too. And if you are in a season of suffering, I pray that you would be brave to share the things and to let somebody in And if you are in a season where you could comfort, go bring hope to somebody that needs it. And I hope and I pray for you that when you are in the middle of your prayer and your hands are like Sammy's and you are like, God, please just give me this perfect shaped shelf right now, this very minute. If it doesn't happen and instead you're drawn to a rocky season, that you have that hope inside of you that knows that there is something below the surface that is way more beautiful than you could have ever even imagined to pray for. And I would love to pray for you right now. Father God, I thank you for your strength and your power and your goodness. God, I confess to you that I still just have a hard time just knowing the truth that you allow pain in this life in order to grow us stronger and to bring us closer to you and to show us pieces of the world and other people that we wouldn't be able to experience through anything other than pain. God, it's really hard as people and humans to accept that truth. But today, I'm just asking that you give us the strength to believe you in those places and to know in hope and in faith beyond a shadow of a doubt, Father, that you will bring us through it and it will be good. God, your word promises that you make all things good for those who are called according to you. And so, God, I pray that over everyone right now. God, I pray especially for someone who is sitting in despair right now and today they need hope. They need your hope. God, I pray that you would show them hope in a tangible way today. And I lift all this up to you, and in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Hey online family, I'm Lindsay. I'm the digital media team lead here at UCity. Thank you so much for watching today. If you would like to have a follow-up conversation or just learn more about us, you can do that at our website, ucity.lakeforest.org, or follow us on Instagram at ucity.lfc. Remember to be generous, be kind, and be a safe space for someone this week. We'll see you next time.